Once again, thank you for coming back to Community Roundtable. Today we have a special guest, Ms. Carol Quan from the Assessor's Office, here to share a lot of information about how our county assesses the value of our homes. During the break we were talking, and I think this is a great topic for the viewers out there, is that what triggers the office to actually reassess your value. I know during our last segment we were talking about there's a transaction going on, and since Prop 13 you already assessed a core value. There's really not a lot of reassessment action going. But I think a lot of people are probably misguided or don't know what actually triggers it, so that might prevent them from doing something that that is good to do but afraid to do.
Well, one of the core misconceptions is that a refinancing of the property will trigger reassessment. And typically, when you refinance your property, it should not trigger a reassessment. Mm-hmm. What happens, though, sometimes is that you have two people on title. One person comes off.
Right.
Now, there's a change in ownership in that situation there, but if they came off for financing purposes and then they're put right back on, that should not trigger reassessment. But what we find that happens is that we reassess the property because that person came off and they never were restored back to title, and so we would process what we call a 50% partial interest transfer.
I see.
But again, if this was strictly for financing purposes and title is again restored, so now you have the two people back, we can go review the property, review the situation, and if warranted, we would go ahead and reverse that reassessment.
I see.
But we would have to be notified by the property owner that this was strictly a refinance. This person came off because it was just for financing purposes, and we're putting them back on. There's a lot of different scenarios.
Right.
But again, typically a refinance situation should not trigger a reassessment.
Okay. What about taking out second mortgages? So anything that does with financing actually doesn't trigger a reassessment of the value? It
typically should not trigger reassessment because when we do assess property is when there is a change in ownership or when there's new construction. So that would lead me to the second point is when someone's doing something to their property and they've gone to the city and they've pulled a permit, the building department sends the permit information to the assessor's office, and at that time we'll look at the permit and see what's being requested.
Right.
And then we will go out and send an appraiser out to do a field inspection. Let's say they put a permit, they're doing an ad. We would have to send someone out there and determine, okay, how much was added, we'll measure it, when was it started, when was it completed, and then we would cost out the addition and then add that to the base value, to the trended base.
I see. Now, these assessments will take place after the construction is completed, right?
Well, again, it depends. If you start construction now, and then let's say as of January 1, 2009, you are 50% complete, we would add 50% of the value of the addition to your 2009 row value.
Oh, I see.
So you would have to pay taxes on that portion that was added. And then when you are completed with the construction, let's say you completed in June of 2009, you would then get a supplemental bill for the remainder of the value of the addition. So the times you do get supplemental bills is when there's a change in ownership or when new construction has been completed.
I see. I know, actually, I'm not going to reveal the name, but I do have a friend. He owns a multi-million-dollar home, but it was, bought a long time ago. So they want to make some remodification and adding additional floor. But they were saying something that as long as the base squarage doesn't change, it's okay to add and not their property assessed value will not get affected. Is that how would they do that?
Are you saying they're adding a second floor?
They're adding a second floor. They actually kind of rebuilt the whole house, but their foundation hasn't changed. So what the foundation of the house, the square footage of the base hasn't changed. For example, the first floor, but it was adding a second floor. I mean, they remodeled the whole house, basically, but the layout, the original layout hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. And they said that won't trigger the reassessment of the value.
There would still be a slight reassessment because mm-hmm. even though they're not changing the overall footprint, they're adding a second floor, they're adding additional living area in the property. So it would be additional square footage, but the cost would be a little bit less, most mm-hmm. likely, because they're not increasing the perimeter square footage. But we would still have to pick up for the additional square footage. We would probably just use a different cost factor for that.
So this is a warning to people that, even if you don't move around the original footprint, the foundation, but by adding anything, it actually supposedly triggers a reassessment of the value. What about for like adding a pool? Would that affect the value of the property? Yes,
we would assess for the pool add. We would just add the value of the pool to the assessment.
So what about anything that you do upgrade? Like I know very popular in the recent years is people are remodeling their kitchens, their bathrooms. These are not adding additional footage, but would this, again, triggers a reassessment of the...
Typically, if you're just remodeling, you're replacing windows, you're replacing a roof, mm-hmm. that would not trigger a reassessment. However, the appraiser might still need to do a field inspection to make sure, they would take a look at it and see what was actually done. Right. But typically for simple remodels, like I said, new roof, replacing windows, replacing fixtures, that should not trigger a reassessment.
Okay. But I know recently, what we're talking about is maybe $20,000, $30,000 in upgrades in kitchens and stuff like that. Would that, again, trigger? Would that trigger?
It would depend on what type of work was done in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So what we've done is we do get a lot of questions regarding new construction, mm-hmm. and so on our website we have an FAQ, a frequently asked questions section on the assessor's website regarding new construction. So if you do have questions regarding new construction, please visit our website, go in there, and if you can't find the answer, then feel free to give us a call or ask a question through email.
Mm-hmm. And one last question regarding this is, what happens if you've done an upgrade, but the assessment office doesn't know? But maybe 5 or 6 years later, they have a change of ownership, and they found out, well, there was additional footage added. What kind of penalty or what kind of legal or violation the homeowner would be looking at?
Well, basically, if a person if they didn't pull the permits, that's mm-hmm. an issue with building and safety.